Being poor is not a noble thing. There is nothing inherently righteous about not having money. Let's talk about it.
Shope, I be Shope honest.
So the other day, I'm on socials, I'm on Instagram, and I see this very popular Christian influencer who shall remain nameless post something about always being content wherever you are, always being content with just what you have. And as I'm watching this, I'm thinking, yeah, sure, the Bible does in fact say godliness with contentment is great gain. It does say that. So this influencer goes on to talk about how so many people on the internet these days are talking about how they build businesses and how they're successful. And it just feels as though more people need to talk about just being content, just being okay, even if all they can do is just afford to pay their bills, if all they can just afford to do is just survive. Now, I want to be careful with my words because, like I said, that is a part of the Bible, right? The Bible does, in fact, encourage contentment. But the irony of watching this video is that this influencer is saying this in front of their, dare I say, $1 million house. Now, I don't know if the house was actually $1 million, but it wasn't no cheap house, if you know what I'm saying. Like, it was a nice house. So it really struck me as odd and interesting that even though the Bible does talk about contentment, it also says things like, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. Right? Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 10. The Bible also says that whenever you work, work heartily as unto the Lord and not unto men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive your inheritance as your reward, right? You are serving the Lord Christ. Colossians chapter 3, verse 23 to 24. Now that passage doesn't specify what that reward or inheritance is. It could be material success. It could not be material success. But the passage is reminding us, right? Because we are ultimately working unto God even above our employers or customers. Now, incidentally, when you work as unto the Lord, primary, by default, you end up providing excellent service to other people, which will often materialize as a material success, but we'll get to that a little later on. Okay, for now, at any rate, there's also the parable of the talents in Matthew chapter 25, verses 14 to 30. I encourage you to go read it, right? But when you read it, you'll realize that part of the message in this passage is working honestly and diligently with the intent to grow that which was given to you, right? It's not about how much you got. It's about what did you do with what you got. That's one of the messages from this passage. And there are many more passages that speak to this concept of what I'll call biblical ambition to grow your resources as not being an inherently bad thing. And so when I consider this reality that the Bible encourages godly ambition as well as contentment, what struck me, okay, as most odd about this influencer's post was the fact that this person, okay, is very financially successful by earthly standards and has in fact accomplished a lot. And there's nothing wrong with that. But this is the part that really threw me off, okay? Follow me. Rarely have I ever seen this influencer speak about the other side of multiplying and growing your resources, which they have clearly done, okay? And I followed this person for years now, okay? More often than not, it's be happy, be content with what you have, and just be grateful. Sidebar, I'm saying they because I don't want you to know if it's a man or a woman. I don't want y'all snooping around and trying to figure out who I'm talking about. But in any case, moving on. But I ask, why is that? Why focus so much on just that one side of the conversation, right? Why not teach us how you did it? How are you remaining content yet leveling up in your life financially? And I know enough about business and the industry this influencer operates in to know that financial growth doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't happen passively. Like, there's an intentionality to the way you think, to the way of carrying yourself, to the way of presenting yourself that is required in order to achieve the level of financial success that you've achieved. And so I'm sorry, I don't find this message of just be happy and content to just be able to pay your bills as a holistically biblical message on how to manage your relationship with money. And like I've said, right, if this was a one-off, cool, right, one could charge it to context. But if by and large, this is the message, be content, don't want too much, be happy to just be able to survive, I don't believe that's helpful. And this is the danger of only focusing on one side of what the Bible has to say about any given issue. As it relates to money, the Bible says both. The Bible says you should learn to be faithful with a little because only then can God give you more. The Bible also encourages you to be ambitious, however, to be cautious such that your ambition isn't so self-centered. And if you don't believe me, because I know some of you guys have really weird views about money, here are some scriptures that speak to this idea of ambition, okay? Let's go through some of them. A slack hand causes poverty, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. Proverbs chapter 10, verse 4. The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty. Proverbs chapter 21, verse 5. Precious treasure and oil are in the wise man's dwelling, but a foolish man devours it. Proverbs 21:20. That's talking about saving and investing. And this one, go to the ant, O sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. Without having any chief, officer, or ruler, she prepares her bread in summer and gathers her food in harvest. Proverbs 6:6-8. That means working hard, diligently, planning ahead, saving up. For the protection of wisdom is like the protection of money, and the advantage of knowledge is that wisdom preserves the life of him who has it. Ecclesiastes 7:12. It likens money to wisdom as being a good thing. One more. Everyone also to whom God has given wealth and possession and power to enjoy them and to accept his lot and rejoice in his toil, this is the gift of God. Ecclesiastes 5:19. So the ability to enjoy wealth is a gift from God. And there are so many more passages, not to mention wealthy biblical figures from both the Old Testament and the New Testament. Okay, so there's Abraham, there's Noah, there's Job, pre and post trial, and then there's Lydia in Acts 16, and so many more. I know that was a lot of scriptures, okay, and I hope I haven't lost you, but I hope that I'm showing you that God does not inherently have an issue with wealth. This is important to understand because so long as you have a warped view of money and wealth, especially when it's tied to a false view of Christianity, you are setting up yourself for poverty, okay? And it's not a God-ordained poverty, right? Dare I say that at worst, okay, it can be even a sinful poverty that has come about as a result of laziness and complacency, or at best, that's brought about simply by biblical ignorance. You see, there is danger in only ever focusing on one side of what the Bible has to say about any given issue. And this topic of money and contentment and ambition is no different. And I'm really passionate about this because by only listening to this one side of be content and don't want too much, okay, without the counterbalance, I spent many years feeling guilty about being ambitious, feeling guilty about trying to do more than just survive, okay? Feeling condemned, right, for trying to go beyond the poverty of my immigrant upbringing. Guys, listen, when my family moved to Toronto from Nigeria, okay, I saw my family go from upper middle class to poverty. I saw my dad struggling, working around the clock, only to still struggle, okay? I saw him go from working as the head of HR for a major national bank to working an overnight security job just to keep the lights on and food on the table, okay? I saw him earnestly working, trying to be a great provider for us, okay? And would often fall asleep as I was talking to him and sharing my heart with him. Why? Because he just pulled a triple shift. And I knew there had to be more. So this desire, okay, to do better than my immigrant upbringing somehow made me feel guilty because all I listened to was don't strive too hard, be content, just be happy to be able to survive. That's why I'm so passionate about this, okay? And here's the other irony of this whole situation. Oftentimes, a lot of these individuals who only focus on this one side of the conversation have often made it themselves, okay? They have their houses, they have their cottages, they have their vacation homes, they have their properties elsewhere, they have their retirement taken care of. And so it's very ironic. And I'm not one to cry privilege, I kind of don't like that term, but I can see how comfort can in some way make you out of touch. And also, aside from the feeling of guilt for wanting to do more and wanting to do it at a higher level, here's another consequence of only listening to that one side of be content, okay? It affects how you see yourself. It psychologically conditions you to always little bro yourself, especially in comparison to these people who you're listening to, right? So if you somehow find yourself fortunate enough or in a position to start interacting with them, you will always see yourself as inferior because you're supposed to have this attitude of, I'm just happy to be here. I'm I don't want to be too ambitious. I don't want to want too much. I just want to be humble. You're supposed to have that kind of attitude. And so if you only listen to that one side, okay, you will always see yourself as little bro. And if the opportunity presents itself, you will miss the opportunity to call your own shots, to assert yourself, and to really build your own thing. At least that was my situation until I snapped out of it by actually learning what the Bible has to say about wealth and contentment and ambition and all of those things. And so, yeah, it really struck me as odd that this individual tends to only focus on that one side of the conversation when they themselves are so incredibly successful and have achieved a lot by earthly standards. So if I could ask this person a few questions, these are some of the questions I would ask. I would say, at a time where there's more economic disparity and uncertainty than ever, with inflation and the cost of living being higher than it's ever been, when the wealth gap is wider than it's ever been, when it seems as though the powers that be are working hard to take control of more resources and leave more people disadvantaged. At a time like this, knowing what you know, okay, about business and ambition and growth within a biblical worldview, why not choose to teach and educate us on how to do the same thing that you've done? Instead of continuing to tell us to just be happy with just being able to survive, why don't you show us how you did it, okay? I just don't think it's right. And again, it's not that the message is wholly wrong, it's just incomplete. I need and want to know the full scope of what the Bible teaches on any given topic. I want to know how you did it. I want to know how you balance contentment with ambition, because you're clearly doing it, or at least trying to do it. So share the knowledge, don't gatekeep it. Now, I've gone on for a while and I can hear some of you watching this saying, oh, but what about the other side? The Bible talks about the other side. I'm like, yeah, I know. For the purpose of absolute clarity, the Bible does offer a lot of warnings about money. It doesn't really say money is inherently wrong. It actually says it can be a good thing in some places, but it does say it's a dangerous thing. Again, just for the purpose of clarity, here are some scriptures that cover this. 1 Timothy 6:9, it says this: those who want to get rich fall into temptation, a trap, and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. That's a serious warning. Luke chapter 9, verse 25 says, what does it profit a man to gain the world but lose his soul? 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 17 says this: as for the rich in the present age, charge them not to be haughty, nor to set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches, but on God, who richly provides us with everything to enjoy. And then Luke chapter 12, verse 15 reminds us to guard ourselves and to remember that our life is not based on how much stuff we have. Life doesn't consist in the abundance of things that we have, okay? And probably the most popular one is 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10, where it says, for the love of money is the root of all evil. Not money, the love of it. So yes, those scriptures are there and they are real. So how do we make sense of all of this? The Bible does not have an issue with wealth, but it does have warnings. The Bible denounces complacency and laziness, okay? But it also promotes industriousness and growth, all right? The Bible encourages generosity and supports wealth building, but warns against storing up earthly treasures and chasing money. How do we make sense of it all? Let me see if I can help. Circling back to the comment I made earlier about working for God almost inevitably always materializes as financial success. Here's what I mean. In my studies, I'm finding that the way to have godly ambition is not to chase money itself. Okay, check out Proverbs 23, verse 4 for that. But rather to chase service, knowing that with this, money is almost an inevitable consequence. But here's the interesting part. You're not doing this to get that. You're not serving in order to get money. No, that's not what you're doing, okay? You're doing the service because you have a genuine interest in making this person's life better. Why? Because they are made in the image of God, okay? And because you are working unto God first. And so with godly service as the priority, that can help guide you from falling into harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction that 1 Timothy talks about and warns us about, because it's godly service first. Do you see that? If money is first, okay, you will fall into worshiping it and doing crazy things in order to get it, okay? If service is first, though, then you will not compromise in order to get the money because you love that person, okay? Because you understand that ultimately, even above that person, you are accountable to God first for delivering excellence. And so the natural byproduct then becomes delivering excellent service to people in such a way that it makes them say, this is so good, I am happy to pay for it. Take my money. One freely gives and yet grows richer, and another withholds what he should give and only suffers want. Proverbs 11:24. Guys, the path to lasting financial freedom is godly service to others as a first priority. So to conclude, do not love money. Do not fear money. Okay? Work diligently as unto the Lord. Work ambitiously to provide the best product or service that will serve others. Work to multiply that which God has given you. If you do that, God will grow your resources. And then you take those resources and then use it to serve more people. Then see what happens. I hope you found this helpful and got some value from it. If you did, please do all the things. Like, comment, share this with a friend, share this in your Christian group chat or non-Christian group chat if you're non-Christian and watching this. Subscribe and hit the bell notification. And then please check the description. There are a ton of helpful links in there that are intended to serve you. If you're into personal development, entrepreneurship, and good music, then sign up for my Artist CEO weekly newsletter. If you want to support by grabbing merch at a special rate and with early access to new drops, then join the Culture Rich World mailing list as well. And if you want to learn a high value skill that actually serves other people and can also increase your own income by helping e-commerce brands, then be sure to check out that link in the description as well. Now, thank you for watching. Check out this playlist for some great music and this playlist for some more additional insights. I'll see you next time. Peace.
I'll admit it. Yeah, I get it. You been holding me down for a minute.